All right, let's dive in. We're about to get into the surprisingly dramatic and honestly pretty dangerous history behind how we read ancient texts. And I mean, forget dusty old books. This is a story about rebellion, about authority, and really, a high-stakes battle for meaning itself.
So this whole story, it really boils down to one central question. Think about it. When you're reading something that's been translated from a language thousands of years old, passed down through who knows how many hands, how can you really be sure you're getting the original message? It's a huge puzzle, right?
And this lays out the problem perfectly. Just take a look. On one side, you've got the official Russian Synodo Bible. It's formal, super archaic, and honestly, for a lot of people, pretty much impossible to understand. But then on the other side, that's the novelist Leo Tolstoy's version. It's radically simple and direct. That gap between the two, that is the battlefield we're going to be exploring today.
So just to make things even more complicated, the great scholar Erasmus of Rotterdam comes along and suggests, hey, maybe the problem goes all the way back to the very source. His idea was that even the original writers, they're human. They might have had faulty memories, introducing errors from day one. So suddenly, we're not just talking about tricky translations, we're talking about the potential fallibility of the text itself.
Wow.
Look, to really understand the life or death stakes of this whole debate, we've got to go back, way back to the 15th century. And we need to meet a man who literally staked his life on the answer to this question, a reformer from Bohemia named Jan Hus.
So Hus's story is just this incredible escalation of conflict. He starts out as a preacher in Prague, and right away he's calling out church corruption. Then he goes after the sale of indulgences, a huge deal at the time. But the real point of no return, that was in 1412. That's when he did something unbelievable. He completely bypassed the entire church hierarchy and appealed directly to Jesus Christ as the supreme judge. I mean, that one move put him on a collision course with the most powerful institution on the planet. And yeah, it all led to his trial and his execution in 1415.
Okay, so to really get why Hus was so furious, you have to understand this one thing. Indulgences. What were they? Well, they were basically certificates the church sold to raise money, and the promise was that they'd reduce your punishment for sins. For Hus, this was just outrageous. He was adamant that a person gets forgiveness through real repentance, not by paying money. He saw it as the church selling something that only God had the power to give. So picture this. He's brought before the Council of Constance, this huge assembly of church power, and they order him to take it all back, to recant. And right there, Hus makes his incredible stand. And you've got to understand, this wasn't just him being stubborn. No, this was a massive declaration. He was saying the ultimate authority wasn't the council, it wasn't the Pope, it was the Bible itself. And this is the key part, as interpreted by his own reason and conscience.
And this is where it all comes together, right? This wasn't just one guy being defiant. This was a fundamental challenge to the entire power structure of medieval Europe. What Hus was really asking was this: who gets the final say on what's true? Is it the institution, the one that's been preserving the text for centuries? Or is it the individual person who reads it and has to figure it out for themselves?
Okay, so this whole fight wasn't just about who had authority. It was also about something maybe even more slippery. How simple mistakes, myths, and, well-intentioned stories could, over centuries, slowly get baked into the tradition and accepted as sacred truth.
This whole thing plays out like a little detective story. So here's how it goes down. Step 1. Way back in the 9th century BC, a high priest named Zechariah is martyred. That's the historical event. Step 2. Fast forward a few centuries, and the Gospel of Matthew mentions this event, but seems to get the father's name wrong. Okay, a small confusion. But then, step 3. In the 2nd century AD, this other book, a really popular one, but not part of the official canon, invents a whole new dramatic story. It claims the martyr was actually Zacharias, the father of John the Baptist. And finally, step 4. This totally new story gets repeated over and over for centuries, until it just becomes an entrenched tradition for many.
And this little case of mistaken identity is the perfect example of the very problem that fueled reformers like Hus. It showed that tradition wasn't some infallible thing. It could literally be built on a simple error. And if that could happen, well, what other mistakes might be hiding in the texts? This was the kind of thing that gave reformers all the ammunition they needed to say, we have to go back to the original sources and just bypass all these layers of accepted but maybe flawed history.
All right, let's jump way forward now, about 400 years, to see a totally different kind of rebellion. This one wasn't led by a preacher. It was led by one of the world's greatest novelists, Leo Tolstoy.
Tolstoy basically shared Huss's obsession with getting to the core of the message. But his weapon wasn't a sermon, it was translation itself. He was just so frustrated with the official, church-approved Russian Bible. It was archaic, it was confusing, and for him, it was simple. If the average person can't understand it, then it's basically useless.
And his method was, well, it was absolutely radical. He wasn't just swapping out words, he was totally re-engineering the text for his audience. Take the Greek word logos, which was usually translated as the word. Tolstoy said, nope, let's call it comprehension, or reason. He threw out all the old stuffy church Slavonic terms and just used modern everyday Russian. And my favorite example, the parable of the mustard seed. He knew his Russian peasant readers might not know what that was, so he changed it to a birch seed, something they would instantly get. See, he wasn't just translating words, he was trying to translate understanding.
I mean, what Tolstoy was doing was incredibly audacious. He basically set himself up as the final authority. He wasn't just clearing up confusing language, he was stripping out entire passages he didn't like, things about miracles or sacraments that he thought got in the way. His whole goal was to present what he believed was the pure, unvarnished ethical message at the core of it all, and make it accessible to literally anyone.
Okay, so where does all this leave us? The struggles of John Hus, the mystery of Zacharias, the project of Tolstoy, they all bring us back to one single, enduring question.
Who gets to decide what a sacred text really means? Is it the institution that preserves it? The powerful councils and churches that have guarded these texts for millennia?
Or is it the scholar who translates it, the expert linguist, or maybe the passionate novelist who has the skill to bring it into a new language, and by doing that, can't help but interpret it?
Or, in the end, is the final authority, the individual who reads it? Is it your own conscience when you encounter the text and have to decide for yourself what it all means?
And that, right there, is the ultimate legacy of someone like John Hus. As one writer put it, he discovered a domain which had been forgotten for ages, that of the conscience. By refusing to back down, he championed a principle that would just explode during the Reformation and shape our modern world, the idea that an individual's conscience is a powerful, almost sovereign territory in matters of faith. The fight over who gets the final word? Well, it turns out that's a fight that is very much still going on today.